So good morning, everyone, from a very hot Dorset sunny day already, and I'm sat inside. I will need to move from this room quite shortly because it's like a furnace. So I hope the sun is shining with you all everywhere, wherever you are. I'm delighted this morning to have one of our key employers with us, Mace. We've been working very, very closely with Mace for a few years now and have been delighted to place a great number of our candidates within their organisation, within a varied roles such as project management, logisticians, planners, etc. So they really are key to military recruitment. So we're delighted to have them here with us today. So sit back and enjoy, and over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Caroline. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the BuildForce Virtual Career Chat. My name is Angela Forbes, and it is a great pleasure to welcome you this morning. So thank you for dialing in. And what a week it is. So we celebrated all things great about our fathers and father figures. So our warm wishes to you all. And this week is Armed Forces Week, which commenced with flag raising events across the country to honour the bravery and commitment of service personnel past and present, including our families, veterans and cadets. So we are forever indebted to you for dedicating your life, and we are honoured to join so many others this week to pay tribute to your service. So enjoy Armed Forces Day on Saturday, and if you would like to support the BuildForce efforts, Caroline will share more about her trek after we hear from our employer. Now, our chats this morning, we welcome Mace, a millennial, but now a global giant following a phenomenal growth, and they are founded on delivering projects faster, safer and better than anyone else, I believe is their mantra. So a truly remarkable organisation, which I'm fascinated to hear more about. So we extend a very warm welcome to our Mace team this morning. So we will hear from three veterans, Jackie Duncan, Terry Price and BuildForce candidate Maddie Hudson, and from our recruitment whiz, the incredible Michaela Dodds. So we will take questions at the end. Feel free to write in any comments as we go. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie Duncan. As Angela said, I'm from Mace. I've been at Mace for about 15 months. I'm ex-Air Force. I was an RAF Chinook helicopter pilot. I served for 13 years, so I've actually been out now longer than I was in. And I've worked across multiple sectors as an employee and also as a consultant in the public sector, in the built environment and in technology. And I would classify myself as an operations specialist, so someone who looks after people, process, systems and data in an organisation. Do the people know what they need to do? Do they have the capability and the competency to do that? And what sort of training can we give them in order to be able to do that? In terms of processes, does everybody know what they're supposed to do when? Do they know what they're receiving, and then what output they're giving? And is that as streamlined and as efficient and as simple as possible? In terms of systems, do they have systems to support? So whether that's Microsoft tools or various other systems in the built environment where I am right now. And data is really the new currency. So do we know how we're doing today? How do we want to improve? How are we going to do that? And then how do we measure ourselves? What is the data telling us about where we could improve or where our potential risks are? And is that shining a spotlight on a blind spot in our experience that we didn't even realise was there? I love that part of it, by the way. That was the catalyst for me to leave, was that I was finding that I was doing those types of things in the military, and people were telling me more and more that those opportunities were really out there in the big wide world outside of the Air Force, and actually it's been true. So I am now the co-chair of the Mace Military Network. Why do I do that? Because I want to meet with people like yourselves on the call and bring them into particularly to Mace. I've felt at home in 3 different places. One was in the Air Force, one was at Network Rail, and the other place I feel really at home is Mace. And I want to try and get that across to you with what you hear today from me, from Terry and from Michaela. And before I go into who is Mace and what do you need to know about us, what I wanted to ask you, and if you could just put this in the chat, is what industry or sector do you think Mace operates in? How would you describe that? One or two words in the chat. and I'm just going to share my screen. Mace. A little bit about us. So these are not this year's figures. These are the last time that these were published. Our ambition is by 2026 to double that turnover. Now, in order to double that turnover, we are going to need more people. Michaela will talk about this later, but globally we have 1,600 vacancies, and that means that we need more people to be able to help us to be able to grow. Why is that really important? It is really important that you know that we are a growing business. We are winning work all the time, and that means that you are joining, or you would be joining, a successful business and being able to help us to achieve that ambition of over 3 billion in turnover by 2026. Our purpose. So we all know you have to have a mission. If you have to define that mission in order to know that you want to succeed. And Mace's Mace's purpose is to redefine the boundaries of ambition. And what that means is to work with our clients in order to help them to see what would be possible. And it is that dream, helping them to achieve their dream, which really connects with me. We do this in 3 different ways. We are absolutely behind pursuing a sustainable world. So we are looking at ways in which the construction industry in particular has a big issue with carbon, because we need to pour lots of concrete. So we are looking at low carbon concrete. We're looking at ways to reduce the amount of the volume of concrete that we use in our buildings, and also not just to demolish and rebuild, but also how can we create the dream for our clients but using buildings that they already have. Growing together, we cannot do this on our own, and it is about a diverse and inclusive workforce from lots of different places. We don't want to create echo chambers. We want people with different perspectives and different experience to come and help us to do things better. And above all, we want to be able to demonstrate that we are delivering distinctive value for our clients. And that goes back to what Angela was saying right at the beginning in her introduction for Mace. And on top of that, we have 4 values, which are about safety, being client focused, creating opportunities for our people, and having integrity. We have 4 business units where we are developing and designing, where we are working with clients in terms of project and program management consultancy, in constructing and winning work for clients to build the buildings that they are looking for. And then in some cases, we build the buildings and then we operate them. So we operate a facilities management or part of our organisation as well. And the reason I asked the question about what sector do you think we're in, we are in the built environment, but we are across all sectors. Our clients come from everywhere. And when I left the military, I was very keen when I joined my first consulting company that I didn't want to necessarily go back into defence. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was that I really wanted to broaden my horizons. And actually, I have found that my skills from the military are incredibly transferable in between sectors. I've worked public sector. I worked for Network Rail in transport. I worked with Microsoft in technology, and I've worked with the Ministry of Justice and youth offending teams, and in regional government. So lots of different, and in education. So lots of sectors, and this is a really positive thing for Mace as well, because you may find that you want to apply your trade in one sector and become really good at that, or it may be that you have a set of skills which are unique to you but can be relevant in all sectors, and that gives you so much variety, because we're not just talking about an organisation that is in the UK. You're also talking about an organisation that is growing across the world, we're winning work in Peru, we're winning work in Canada, we're winning work in the Middle East, in Singapore. So if any of you have aspirations to go and be mobile, there are opportunities that Mace has for you, not just in the UK, but globally. And that is the end for me for now. Handing back to Angela.
Thank you for that, Jackie. That was incredible. So very insightful. Could I please pass to your colleague, Terry? Ask him to join us.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for BuildForce for giving this opportunity to chat to you today. What I'm going to cover in the next 10 to 15 minutes is the Mace military recruitment program. There's a lot of internal changes due to this change in the way we operate, but I'm going to focus on the things that affect you as a potential joiner or employee to the new employee within the company. And usually I'm going to start this with a bit of background on myself, same as Jackie. 32 years in the Royal Marines, medically discharged at 3 months' notice. And the reason I flagged that up is because what I want to get across this morning is we understand absolutely that this is a really anxious and unusual time. It's a once in a lifetime evolution as such. I remember when I was going through the process myself, because I'd been in the Royal Marines so long and seen so many people leave the service, there was almost like an understanding that I knew how to go outside, how to network, how to present myself in the civilian arena. This wasn't true. This wasn't true at all. So that was quite unusual. I only joined Mace on the 28th of March, so 3 months ago, just under 3 months, and via a referral, that's a system whereby someone within Mace knows you, introduces you to the organisation, and then you go through that process, the normal process. Someone gives you a call, and you go through the interview process in the usual manner. I had some aspirations or some conditions, if you like. I wanted to remain living in the Southwest, and I wanted flexible working. I wasn't completely convinced that I wanted to remain in the defence and security sector, but I did know what Mace could offer, and Jackie has neatly covered a lot of the variation that Mace provides in various sectors, and obviously internationally as well as in the UK. My skill set, like many of yours who are on this call, is much suited to living out of a bag somewhere overseas in the security sector, and I didn't want that from myself. How I got a job, basically, I networked, and you'll be surprised over the next few months how your network will help you. And that network consists of, it's multi-layered. It's your friends, it's your family, it's colleagues, trusted friends, trusted colleagues. It's BuildForce now, which has got a huge array of resources, which I would absolutely encourage you to use. As an example, I speak to Caroline at least once a week in a formal meeting, and we touch base and communicate probably every day. And the last bit of advice I'll give, and I don't want to incur on what Maddie's going to talk about later, is preparation is key. Your CV is key, so please take the time to develop that and share that with, again, trusted advisors, the people at BuildForce, and even when someone gives you a call from Mace in the future, with that person, because we can help you shape that. Because it's a difficult process and quite daunting when you haven't developed one before. And also interview prep. When a friend said, have you considered Mace? I had no idea, like many of you on this call probably, who Mace was and what it did. So I did some research on the net. So those are my 2 key points with regard to my situation and how I left the service. My ex-military, as Jackie touched on it, transferable skills. There's a huge wealth of transferable skills that you've got, and I've just listed some there, which all of you have some, or if all, and many more of those skills, which are good in any business. The problem-solving elements, the adaptability, the fact that we move around every 2 years, go to a new role, so you're used to working with uncertainty and ambiguity, which in the commercial sector, that's just as much as a challenge as it is for you. Obviously, you're committed and you can make a decision. That's really important. So those are the transferable skills. When Maddie speaks, she'll talk about some of the technical skills or qualifications that might support you as you go on this journey. Just touch on the Mace military network. Within Mace, there are a number of networks. As an example, Parents at Mace, Women at Mace, Pride at Mace, to give just another three. The Mace military network is made up of ex-military and not exclusively military, but other people who have experience of the military. And it's an informal network within Mace that helps and provides support to those both who have embarked on their career, might have gone into a new sector, have some questions, but also the new joiners to Mace as well, from the military network, because of people with like-minded. So guess what? You'll fit in. There's lots of people with the same sort of backgrounds as yourself in Mace, already working and functioning, have gone through this journey that you're about to undertake as well, and been very successful. What are we doing differently to what we've done before? Targeted support for service leavers, veterans and reservists. That's, if I was to put it in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. And we're being more comprehensive in our approach. We're trying to ensure that when you talk to somebody from Mace, or when you submit your CV to Mace, someone with a similar background is looking at your CV. Why is that important? That's important because sometimes elements of your CV, even though you've civilianized it, still need further translation, so a hiring manager or a recruiting manager can understand exactly what your skill set is. And they will help both the recruiter, and once you have a conversation with one of the team, which is why I brought the next bullet up, you'll receive a call from someone who is ex-military, one of the Mace military network, at your first touch point with Mace. Probably once, or either if you've come through the Mace website, or whether you've come through BuildForce and Caroline or one of the team has forwarded your CV. That person will be ex-military, so ideally a similar skill set and background as yourself, but not always. They'll talk about the opportunities within Mace and also talk to you and listen to your aspirations and personal circumstances. And some of those points are certain things, because when we transition from the military to another organization, we have got a set of aspirations and a set of constraints, if you like. I think Maddie refers them to as non-negotiables, which are things that you need to achieve when you transition from the military. And we're absolutely keen to make sure we understand what your aspirations are. So if we do place you within the organization, you're in the right place. If we don't do that effectively, you'll leave. We understand that. So we'll do everything in our power to ensure that where you land in Mace is the right place, both for your personal circumstances and your aspirations for progression. Speaking to people, so there'll be people on here now who are still in the military, obviously, and some are veterans and some are reservists. Before you leave, advice on which courses to do to strengthen your CV. There's opportunities for work experience, and they are available in certain sectors and certain projects, tailored to both the individual and the organization. The last thing you want to do is send you to a busy project where the person who's hosting you hasn't got time to help you, support you, chat through, and make sure you get the best out of that experience. And the third point there, interview advice and preparation. We'll also do that as well, give you an idea what to expect pre the interview, what sort of questions you might be expected to deal with, and do what we can from the preparation point of view. The third stage is upon joining Mace. We're in the process of finalising at the moment a Mace military training programme. Whilst we understand that people join Mace from the military with not a complete skill set and is inexperienced, particularly in the construction sector, with the technical aspects, we realise that. So what we're developing at the moment, and we hope to develop and deliver the first iteration later this year, is initially an enhanced induction program, which sort of looks at the key points of the key areas, deltas, deficits in your knowledge when joining Mace, that we can help close that gap quicker so you can settle into your role much easier, feel the support of the organisation as you do that transition, and also make you more productive earlier. So that's something we're looking at to develop and formally provide for all new joiners from Mace who are service leavers, veterans, and reservists. You will also be allocated a mentor. Now, this mentor wouldn't necessarily be a military person. It's more likely to be somebody from the sector you're in, who understands Mace, has been there for a number of years, and can help you understand that sector and deal with many of the problems that you're going to face as a new joiner to an organization, and also sort of make that transition and that bedding in much smoother. So those three areas are the three areas that of the military recruitment program that I think are most pertinent to today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maddie. I am 8 months out of the army and 6 months into working at Mace. My current role is a assistant project manager for the local gov sector. Oh, apologies. Excellent. Okay, so today I'm going to run through with you a bit about my background, so understanding the skills that I had prior leaving the military and also while I was in the military, just so you get an understanding of the amount of construction knowledge and background that I had. My experience leaving, just to normalise any of those anxious feelings that any one of you are having, my role at Mace and why I joined it, and then a bit about weekly routine. I think for me, when I left the military, is that I wanted to know, am I going to be able to walk my dog? Am I going to be able to still fit in going to the gym? What's my social life going to be like? Am I going to be working till 11 o'clock at night? So I thought I would add in a bit of that information. And then I'm going to go into talking about 2 projects I'm currently working on, and then some transition tips. So a background. So prior to joining Sandhurst, I did a degree, and my degree is completely unrelated to construction or project management, any of that sort. I worked for a couple of months for a migration crisis charity. So again, nothing construction related there. And then finally finished up working at retail before joining the military. I joined in January 17 and commissioned in December 17. I then joined the Royal Engineers and was there for 4 years. And while I was in the Engineers, I spent my entire time at 26 Engineers. So for those of you that don't know, this is a armoured engineering regiment. So again, not really heavily construction focused. I managed demolitions, water point stuff, water crossings on exercises, tank scrape sangers, defensive positions. But none of it was the detail potentially that we needed for this job. But what it was really important that I learned from it is the project and people managing and the skills that you gain from that. I left the army with a CMI management leadership level 5, which you get from doing Sandhurst. And then I did an APM, which again, I got purely based on my troop commander's experience. I did a yoga instructor's course. I put this in because at the time when I did it, I wasn't planning on leaving. I just used my standing learning credits to do something I was interested in. And then I used my second load of standing learning credits for doing an NCRQ in manager safety. I left before the 6-year point, so I didn't get any enhanced learning credits. So again, anyone that has the funding available to do any of the Prince 2s or Agile project management, they're going to be really beneficial. However, for me personally, I was hoping that my practical experience would outweigh the theoretical experience that I had to show for my qualifications. Okay, so my leaving experience, I appreciate that this is not everyone's experience, so bear with it. I just thought that I would share my feelings of what I went through in order just to normalise it a bit. And also just to recognise that during this sort of 18-month period, I was still being deployed, I was still going on exercises. So when there are gaps, I think I went away for about 4 times during this period, up until around July time. So first of all, I signed off actually in October 20, and immediately after Christmas was going on the CTP workshops that you have for the CVs, which is available for you to do, and that's free of charge, provided for by the military. I went on Officers Association websites and just basically started building on my CV. I hadn't written one for years, so it was definitely out of date. The other thing that I was doing is booking courses, like I said, for the NCRQ, and also organising all the previous qualifications. So that is applying for the CMI for when you've done it, whether that's your CLM or JOTAC or JOLP, whatever course you've done. the military have a way in order to put it into civilian speak, basically. For those of you that hadn't applied to it, again, it's free, so you can just apply for it online through the CMI website. I got my CV to a generic kind of confidence standard where I was happy just to pass it out in order just to get on networking events. For those of you that haven't applied to very many networking events, you'll know that you have to put a CV in before you can even attend the event, just so they can scan through it and just make sure you're the sort of candidate they're looking for. And at this stage, I was going to every event I could find. I was mainly looking at finance at this stage, because everyone always says that's where the money is. And I was also looking at tech startups. I was looking at consultancy, heritage architectural firms, kind of UN involvement as well, Halo Trust, Formula One, literally everything, you name it. I just wanted to do something and I was not sure what environment I wanted to be in. It was around April time that I got asked if I wanted to extend, as my handover takeover wasn't arriving until later than intended. And I accepted it for two reasons. The first is that I became really quite panicked about leaving. I was meant to be, my out of uniform date was around July time. It was now April. I still didn't have a job. I hadn't been called back from any of my CV jobs, and I didn't feel like I was doing very well. And I maybe started to realise that the grass potentially isn't greener on the other side. And the second reason was that I didn't do enough research before signing off. There's actually a bit of a sweet spot if you are going to go for finance, and that's leaving around the January, February time, because that's when the majority of transition schemes are for the financial side of things. So in my head, I was like, well, if I'm out of uniform in July and I'm not starting work until January, what am I going to do in that time? I didn't want to start a job and then leave it, and it got a bit complicated. So it was around June, July time. So my extension got accepted. So I was then leaving in December rather than September, October time. It was around July time on LinkedIn that BuildForce popped up. And I saw that there was some stuff on construction. So I started attending their kind of Thursday lunchtime spots where they just do an hour with two different employers. And they were doing it every other Thursday at the time, I believe. And they were brilliant. They were really insightful, really helpful. Some of them, I thought that it didn't quite suit me. Other than I was interested in, and just started networking immediately, you know, adding them on LinkedIn after the meetings just to ask, you know, I found your talk really interesting. Would you mind if I could just give you a call to speak a bit further? I'm not sure about what to do. And all of them pointed me just to speak to BuildForce because they would be really helpful. So I called up Angela, and what I thought was going to be a sort of 30-minute meeting like the CTP workshops or talks turned into a 2-hour conversation, which I still am extremely grateful for. And it was just complete clarity through the chaos. And she gave me one of the best pieces of advice for leaving, and that is, what is your non-negotiables? I apologise if I'm stealing your thunder, Angela, but you know, whether it's pay, whether it's location, whether it's working from home, whether it's being able to be abroad, whether it's having flexible hours so you can pick up your kids or walk your dog, you know, what is the thing for you that is going to get you up in the morning, and whether you're having a good day or a bad day is still going to be really beneficial to you. So I did that, and she suggested that whatever the job I go for, stick to those non-negotiables. Don't just apply for every job that you see, because if you do get it, you might follow through you know, to applying to it. So I did that, completely changed my CV and my covering letters, and making them more specific to the company. Some people like a really approachable approach with your cover letter, whereas other traditional companies prefer a standardized, you know, you can go on Google and be like, what's an example of a cover letter? And they want that. Do they want the personality side or the professional side? All of those elements. Really look into the companies that you're looking at. Do they want a one-pager CV, or do they want a CV with pictures on? Do they want a 2-pager with experience, or do they want your skills and qualification at the top? Don't be afraid to contact someone from the company that you're looking at and be like, you know, what is the most appealing for you to have? I want my CV to be nice and easy to read and appealing. So all of those elements. The other thing that I was told to investigate into is the difference between project management construction and project management consultancy. They're two very, very different things and very different lifestyles, which when I originally was applying for jobs, I didn't know the difference between, and that's my naivety. So for all of you there who are interested in looking at construction in both elements and consultancy, then definitely have a look into it. It's great. It was around September that I suddenly had an influx of interviews, and it was a really exciting time and job offers that came through. It was at this moment that at one point I was looking at just accepting the first job that I got because I was so overwhelmed about getting it. But then you have to sit back and, you know, really look at if it's the best situation for you. And there are 2 bits of advice that I really recommend here for interviews. The first is people will never necessarily remember what you say, but they will always remember how they feel about you. So that is you needing to be really enthusiastic, passionate. Any previous grief you may have with the army, just put that to one side because you are selling yourself, and that's really important. And the other thing is practice, interview questions, and also practice speaking about how much your worth is. Be confident about what your base salary should be, and then what your accommodating salary is. Like, if you've got kids or if you want to go to the gym, that's another £30 a month for gym membership, or tally those things up that you get for free at the moment with the military. These are all little bits that I can come into later, but they're just things that I wasn't aware of at the time, and it wasn't until someone asked you, okay, how much are you worth? How much are you willing to join the company for? And I had no idea, and I just went off a lower salary than what I was originally on, and it put me in quite a difficult place because I realised that when you're gone from used to living in quarters to then living in civilian houses, there's a big jump in renting and everything. So that was my, again, naivety, which I learned from. So it was around November time that I had my last day in uniform, and it was also the exact same time that I secured my job with Mace after looking at about 6 other construction companies, and I was really, really happy to join Mace. I decided that I wanted a bit of a career break, so between November and January I didn't work, just chilled out at home, have a bit of a breather, and then I started work in January this year. So why Mace? For me, it perfectly fit my non-negotiables, which were I didn't want to personally work in the defence sector. And I know lots of military people who are really interested in staying within the defence sector because it's what they know, what they love, and they want to just bring that asset and that knowledge into the construction world. For me, my background is in arts and culture, and my degree was in that sort of related spectrum. So I wanted to kind of harness that. And I found that a lot of the other construction interviews that I was going for naturally were trying to put me down that defence sector. So yeah, this was really refreshing for Mace just to be like, what do you want to do? What sector do you want? What's most important to you? Ultimately, I'm passionate about this, so they were able to let me flourish in it. The next one was location-wise. I currently live in the middle of Dorset, which is not really ideal for jobs, but Mace have allowed me to both work from home, which I'll come to in my routine, as well as working on site. So it's not the case of looking at a computer all day, every day. There is a bit of travelling involved, but it's a bit of a shock at first, different to rolling out of the bed when you're living in the mess and then walking across the road to work. But it is, again, you just make it work within your means. Working with people, I'm a very personable individual. I like working with people. I feel like face-to-face interaction is really, really important. And so I thought consultancy would be best in that manner. I chose project management because it was the most important thing that I had done within the military, and important to me in that it was the best part about my career was, being on site. There was a problem. Okay, who have we got here? We've got a couple of joiners, we've got some fitters, how are we going to work this out? Oh, well, this one time I did this on the site and it worked. Awesome, let's give it a go. And it's that mentality of constantly just being on the ball and working with different people of different trades. You never get bored, that's for sure. And also the start date was really important to me. I was a little bit ill leaving the military, so I just needed kind of 2 or 3 months just to basically be back on top form again, which they were absolutely fine with me delaying my start date. So why the construction industry? I chose this because I realised that I'm a very visual learner. I was really concerned that if I joined a tech or a finance industry, if there was a problem, in order to solve it, it would be computer-based, programming probably, and I'd have to be a bit techie in order to understand it. Whereas I love it that in the construction industry, there's a problem and you'll say, oh, I don't really understand that. Can someone show me? And someone can physically take you on site and say, that beam over there is slightly different to what it should be. It should be fire resistant, or it should be an I-beam instead. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, how can we go about that? Right. And then you speak to the right people to solve it. It's all tangible. It just works. And for me, being slightly dyslexic, that sort of environment worked for me. So in regards to my role, a lot of you are potentially looking at assistant project manager and thinking, okay, 5 years in the military, leaving as a captain, why are you going in as an assistant project manager and not a project manager, or potentially even a senior project manager? So it wasn't until I got here that I truly appreciated it. I was kind of encouraged to go down this route by Mace, and I didn't really understand it, and I was really frustrated by it. But then when I joined, I immediately understood. When you're joining in as a PM or a senior PM, there is an immediate immediate sort of expectation level and output that you need to be able to be in charge of people, or you need to be able to be responsible for the projects. And at this stage, I didn't even know what REBA stages were, which is obviously the basic fundamentals of construction. So I was really reassured that actually this was the best decision of me to kind of sit back slightly for a couple of months and just listen, learn by osmosis, absorb it all in. And then occasionally I'd just turn to my line manager and just say, how about this? Does this work? And if it was a good idea, they could be like, yeah, absolutely, say it in the meeting. Or if it's a bad idea, she was like, no, we'll talk about it, I'll explain it later. So as it's client focused, you need to constantly look really competent. It's not the case of being in the military where no cuff too tough when you're dealing with legal and millions of pounds. So yeah, that's why I'm in this role. Okay, so a bit about my weekly routine. So this is a bit of a shock. I'm afraid there is gone the days of half Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But hopefully none of this is too daunting. So just bear with me while I work through it. So locations, like I said, I work a bit from home, 2 to 3 days. Occasionally I work in the office, and that's more if I've got meetings with clients, and also if my line manager wants to have a catch up. It's nice just to go for a coffee and see some faces. And then I normally go onto site 2 or 3 times a week, depending on if there's problems or if we've got monthly meetings. When you're on site, you do one-to-ones with your contractors and your clients. So that will be a separate meeting, and then you'll do one together, which is the progress meeting monthly. And that's, how far have we come and where have you got to go? What are the delays in the program? Are there any issues that we can sort out now, or are they going to be design issues for later? On site, you've also got to do kind of highlight reports. So that's basically just going around, taking pictures, any major issues, minor issues, or also things that you've done really well. So you can report it back to the client, and then they can send it up through their social media, or they can send it up through their own chain of command. We do update workshop meetings. So that's if the client suddenly changes their mind and thinks, actually, I kind of want a red carpet instead of a blue carpet. This is me putting it very simply, by the way. But just so you get an understanding of what the design meetings are, normally there are much bigger sort of structural levels, but equally those changes, the contractor needs to be adaptable to it. And then also it's just FaceTime with the client. You've got to be, you've got to know their gripes, and you've also got to know when they're happy with things, what's going well, what's not, because ultimately you're meant to be running the show for them. And when you're off-site, so all of those meetings that you're having need to be minuted. So it is a bit laborious, but it has to be done because we use these as legal documents to track what's been said when. So when something goes wrong, we can say, well, Mace advised X, Y, Z. And then again, updating relevant trackers. So OI trackers, open issue trackers, RFI trackers, request for information. We have all of those in construction environments, not just for the military. Invoicing and fees. For those of you that haven't included on your CV, I'm responsible for £1 million worth of kit, signals, equipment. I'm responsible for, the mess charity event that cost £10,000. Stick it on your CV, because all of a sudden you're dealing with a lot of fees and a lot of costs, which is really good to have. Specialist consultant liaising. So I'm not a specialist in acoustic paneling or structural engineering, but there are consultants who are. So I liaise with them to make sure that the problems are solved, and also any future issues we can kind of sort and keep going through. File notes. These are documents that are put together when we believe that the client should do something in a certain way, but you can't tell them that they have to do it that way. So you just do an advisory note. For example, at the moment, steel prices have gone up detrimentally because of the Russian-Ukraine crisis. Ukraine and Russia creates a huge amount of steel, so as a result, the prices have gone up in the UK, which is causing a huge influx of costing in the UK. So when the client is like, why has my project gone from 1 million to 4 million in a week, we need to create a file note to explain that to them. And then any meeting output, so chasing people up to make sure that they get the job done. Okay, so just looking at the timetable then, so I'm working on 2 projects at the moment. Normally you'll work between 2 and 4 as a project management consultancy. And so location, my Monday routine is to drive to the office, and that's just to have a meeting with my line manager weekly. My commuting time is an hour, so I normally leave home around 8 o'clock. I'm in work by 9, finish work at 5:30, so I'm home by about 6:30. I can normally fit in a sort of home workout on that day. The V&A, I work on Tuesdays, but I work from home that day. So in the morning, I can go for a nice long 7K dog walk, normally with my other half, which is really nice to spend some time with him. Start work at 9. I normally do like a little run, maybe at lunchtime for half an hour or an hour, and then back at work until about 5:30. On Wednesdays is a really long day for me. But just so you know, this is my choice. I really wanted this project. So you are expected to go on site. So it is a 2.5 hour train journey, but that literally straight through up to London, and I can download work prior offline on my laptop, so I can just get it done on the train, which is good. And then Thursday is to my other site. So that's a long kind of back-to-back day, but then I'm working at home again on a Friday, which is really nice. So this is my first project that I was initially given when I started, and it is Fareham. It's the Fareham Theatre that we're doing, and it is a part refurb and then new build. So it's really exciting. We're basically getting the internal of the theatre. That's great, relatively new, nothing wrong with it. So the client wants to save money and keep the internal theatre. But then all of the outsides, that red brick surrounding bit and the dodgy green sign, they are going to take it all down and put this nice new modern white facade around it. It's a really exciting project, purely because it's the first one that I've been given, so I'm really invested in it already. It's locally as well to sort of Winchester area, which is ideal. And when you're given these sorts of issues amongst these sorts of problems, you're not expected to solve them by yourself. I can't stand there and tell them that they've done this wrong or that or whatever. It's literally just going to, like I said before, your specific consultants, so the SMEs, and going through with them, okay, what do we need to change? How can we go about changing it? And then my second project, which I'm really passionate about, is the V&A, which is going to look absolutely spectacular. I was hoping to run through some elements of this with you, but I'm sadly not actually allowed to. But basically, there is an external shell, which, as you can see, has already been built. That's not my side of things. I'm being put in charge with another project manager to do all the internal sides. So all the M&E that needs to be put in, all of the flooring, all of the walls, the ventilation systems, the lift shafts, all of that needs to be done. So as you can see, it's going to be a really spectacular building when it's done, and hopefully finished around Q2 of 2024. We're starting at Easter next year. So yeah, that is my 2 projects that I'm working on. And then finally on to transition tips. I appreciate, sorry, I'm being slightly over. So I will be brief. First of all is networking. It's really, really critical to just go to as many meetings as you can. And I say go to everything because it gives you the opportunity to know what you like and what you don't like. Do you like the person that's giving the talk, or do you like the company that he's talking about? Do you like the projects that they're on? What interests you about that company? And don't be afraid to message them on LinkedIn afterwards, being like, look, hey, I went to a BuildForce meeting. I thought that was really interesting. Could I have 10 minutes of your time just to talk through a few elements? And do you mind mentoring me a bit? Another thing that I found is beneficial is having a separate email account, a really professional one. I normally do mine just in Outlook. And then that way, whenever you've got a job interview coming in, it's not going amongst, all the stuff that you've recently bought on another email or going into spam. It is just an email that you only use for applying for jobs. So when that email goes off, you can respond timely, you can check the spam regularly without having like loads of other horrible, spam emails in. Non-negotiables, make your non-negotiable list. It gives you a good idea of, are you just applying jobs for the sake of it because you're almost panic applying and trying to just get a job? Or is that going to be a job that's going to benefit your lifestyle that you can join and stay with for at least a good few years before thinking about leaving? Generic CVs and tailored CVs, and that's the same with covering letters. So when you're applying for a job, when you're applying to go on event workshops with various companies, having a generic CV for whatever it is, construction, finance, and sending those off. But then when you apply for the job, just make sure you change it and you find out whether the company would want a one-pager or 2 pages, or whatever it is, just to specialize in it. Another bit of advice is that I joined a job where there isn't a transition scheme. Luckily, Mace are now bringing in the military one, which will be really appealing to many of you, hopefully. It looks like it's going to be a great course as well. But basically, I wanted to just go straight into the job. I learn best by being put under pressure, and osmosis, basically, just absorbing it all in and learning from experience. Many people prefer being part of a scheme where they can learn before they practically apply. So have a think about what would work best for you. Felt leaning, like I said before, hopefully all of you are on a bit of a high and you're excited to get going, but it is normal just to have a bit of a low occasionally. But just make sure you're using the support that you have, whether that's from CTP or BuildForce, or whether it's your family or other friends leaving the military. Just make sure that you're leaning back on them. Know the business. Cupping and blagging is definitely not a thing in the civilian world. You need to know the company. And if you are asked in an interview, what other sector would you be interested in other than defence? Definitely have something in the back of your sleeve to talk to, because it is a big question that does come up for ex-military people. I think sometimes saying defence is just a cop-out, so they know that you've done your research if you can say other elements that interest you. There is a thing too early. Michaela or Terry may correct me on this, but occasionally when we've been in meetings, people have said that they're ready to join Mace Easter 24, and their CVs have kind of been slightly moved to the side. So just make sure that when you are applying for jobs, it's within a sort of realistic timeline that's feasible for you to join a company. And then courses. So use your standing learning credits and enhanced learning credits. Obviously, it's basically free money. And also, I know some regiments, like the engineers, we've got a Revit fund as well. If it's a course that benefits the regiment, you can also use that to your advantage. So obviously, any of the PM qualifications, so your Agile, your Prince 2, any of those, they're going to be really beneficial. But if you don't have the money for it, because like I did, I left earlier than an enhanced learning credit, didn't want to spend that amount of money on a course, don't just miss your practical experience either. You do know a lot already, way more than you think you do in construction, and it's so beneficial. Finally, my biggest regret is not doing Excel, PowerPoint, and Microsoft project courses. The construction industry are absolutely savvy at it. They're super quick and really, really good at doing it. So that's something that if you're not sure what to spend your standing learning credits on, I really recommend, just doing a couple of courses, just get grips with that. And that's me done. Angela, can I pass back to you, please?
So I am currently working on High Speed 2 at Euston, but I really just wanted to do a quick summary of where has Mace been, or are there any buildings or projects that you will have heard of that Mace has been involved with. So Mace was heavily involved in the Olympic Park in 2012. They were involved with the Shard in London, the new stadium for Tottenham Hotspur. We are currently building the venues for the Commonwealth Games that are happening this summer in Birmingham. We've also won some work, I said earlier, in Peru, where we were helping the Peruvian government to build flood defences to protect them from the potential further El Nino weather events. And we've won more work in Peru with their schools. We're also involved in the nuclear sector with new nuclear plants, so it's Sizewell. And one of the reasons why I wanted to join Mace was that I knew that Mace was involved with the construction of the new Microsoft store on the corner of Oxford Street and Regent Street in London. It's a Grade 1 listed building that belongs to the Queen. And there was a huge amount of work that needed to go in to protect the heritage of that building, but also, if anybody's been in it, to create a space where people can go and get involved with Microsoft technology at the cutting edge. And I think that having been in there as a Microsoft employee early before the rest of the public were allowed in with my family, I think the work that was done there was incredible. And then to know that Mace had done that really made me think this is an organisation that I'd really like to be part of. So we have won work with High Speed 2 for the phase 1 stations at either end. So we are working on Curzon Street in Birmingham and also at the high speed station at Euston, and the underground connections to bring Euston and Euston Square together underground. We are working alongside Network Rail. They've got an operational station there that they're still trying to, obviously this week, not so much, but they will also want to redevelop Euston Station at or slightly after us, and we need to make sure that we're building an integrated campus on behalf of the local community and on behalf of the government. So very complex. It's not, people on this call are not going to be strangers to complexity. Some of the things that Maddie was saying earlier, I was just, project management is time, cost, quality. What is it we need to do? That's the mission focus. What might happen? That's all of the what ifing that we do when we're thinking about our mission and planning the mission. That's risk management. We're very organized people. We like to be on time. Time is incredibly important. We need to make sure that we're hitting the deadlines, because if you don't hit your deadlines, then your cost goes up. And attention to detail. And so all of those things are things that you bring into this world. So then moving on to just talk about our pipeline. And if I just go around the pictures here. So we have won work in the top left corner to redevelop the old airport at Athens. To the right of that is the new headquarters for BT. To the third picture to the right of that was Mace's involvement with the 2020 Dubai Expo, which got delayed because of COVID and happened in the first few months of last year and the first few months of this year. Absolutely incredible site. Then to the right of there is HM Prison 5 Wells, which we are developing, and also have won contract to do more work with the Ministry of Justice for their new prisons programme. In the bottom left is Go Expansion. We're building a new metro, or extending the metro in Ontario in Canada. To the right of there is Paddington Square redevelopment. The third picture on the bottom there is the London School of Economics Marshall Building, and to the right of there is the new hospital project in Jersey, and we are also working with the government on their new hospitals programme. As I said in my early spiel, Mace is a growing company, winning business, and our clients are inviting us back to do more and more. And that is a fantastic organisation to be part of. And I'd like to finish there.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Right, okay, I'm going to be pretty quick here. So I just want to download a little bit of information to you, so you understand a little bit about the volume of which we're hiring and how that hiring process works, particularly for the sort of military cohort that are joining the business. So in the past 12 months, Mace has hired over 2,000 people globally. And just over 50% of that were in UK roles. Of that, we hired 42 military candidates since July last year, and obviously we're in an upward trend, so that has actually accelerated in the first half of this year as well. So just to give you an understanding of our current, when Jackie says about our pipeline, we're currently sitting on 1,488 vacancies. So to put that in context, 687 of those will be in the UK, and that is spread across the country. And then the remainder will be globally. As Jackie said, Canada, we've got Greece, and we do a huge amount in the Middle East as well. So I guess it's about the appetite. And as Terry said before, his appetite was not to be away from home. For some of you, that is just, you thrive on that and would like to continue that global adventure beyond your military career. So there are lots of opportunities that come in different shapes and sizes. Again, another stat for you to look at, the role that Maddie's talked about of project management is particularly the consultancy project management role is very much our bread and butter. So of the vacancies, we currently have 735 of the consultancy project managers, and it is a role where consistently we've had success in placing military candidates, ex-military candidates, and that's across so many different sectors. We work in healthcare, education, as Manny said, local gov, defence, the list goes on, and we're working with some really high-end clients that are doing some really exciting cutting-edge work. So I think that image of construction being, certainly, hard hat and boots on site right now, only 58 of our current requirements of that 1,488 are actually on-site roles in the construction technical environment. So that's just to give you a kind of, to scale it for you to understand what our challenges are going ahead. The vacancies will split into two different sort of bundles, if you will. There's the secured vacancies, which is the projects that are already happening in process. As Jackie said, HS2 project like that already has its team built, and there are rafts of opportunities that come forward that the client will fund, and we know we need people for those slots. And then we also have unsecured opportunities, which is for work that we're confident we're going to win, and we need to make sure we have the right resource to push forward on that. So and the difference that will make for you from a candidate perspective is a secured role. When we talk about timings, is something that they need somebody pretty sharpish. They expect people to be on a notice period. So if you're 2 months out from leaving the military, then that's a time frame we can work for a secured role. The unsecured roles are things that we are, as we say, we're actually pipelining the talent as well. So you may come to meet us with that, and it will be more of a kind of speculative conversation of, these are all the roles that are coming. How many of those would you be suitable for if we land all that work? And they're the ones that conversations we can have with you, up to 6 months before you're ready to leave, and you can get a flavour for what the terrain is going to look like when you're out in the big wide world. So it was just like I say, sort of put that in some context for you. One of the things I've talked about on these sessions before is our Mace Military Review Board. So as a military network, we realised that some of the, resistance in the business for people hiring military people is they didn't actually understand what they do, you know, what you guys are doing, and like any other organisation, there's so many different facets to it. So we set up the military CV review board so that ex-military people could come on to the call and they could translate the CV and talk about what it means to be a quartermaster or what it means to be an RSM of a barracks, you know, and really say to people, actually, this is what is incorporated, as Maddie said, you know, this is what this person doing. It might not say that on their CV, but they will have done it. You know, they will have done the stakeholder engagement. They will have been involved in procurement. So we found that very successful because we get some hiring managers that perhaps, you know, haven't got that level of understanding or appreciation, and we can put your, you know, your CVs in front of them and help them on that journey. And then beyond that, we set up the interviews. We have a sort of rolling job ad that is sort of quite generic for, you know, sort of, I think it's called a veteran opportunities for you know, for service veterans. So that is there for you to put your CV on, and then we sit as a group, Jackie included, Terry and Brian Usher, the co-chair of the military network, and we look at those CVs and we talk about where we can introduce them to somebody in the network and where we might be able to use their skills. So that's really the process. So like I say, it can take two shapes. It can be you fit this role really well, let's get you interviewed, how quick can you start, and also let's look, you know, speculative person and try to match them to future opportunities and help them, you know, on that journey and what that means. So yeah, I think that's where we are. Obviously, we've talked about the military program, which is taking shape nicely at present, with some of the help with some of our new starters like Maddie, sort of giving the input of their experiences and some of the things they didn't know, so that we can help to fill those gaps quite quickly when people land, and take that pain away from their team, if you will, and give them the confidence that actually there's a basic level of understanding I have here because I've been given it quite early in my time at Mace, and obviously give them you know, a proper mentor and some support through the early stages of their onboarding. So I think that's it. I think I'm keen to move on to the Q&A, because that's where all the good stuff happens. So hopefully you've got some questions to ask us based on all we've shared today. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. If I could ask our Mace speakers to come back on board. Those numbers just astounded me, Michaela.
I know.
I couldn't believe that.
They astound me on a daily basis, Angela.
Okay, fantastic. And if I could ask Caroline if she's able to come on board and join us. If you do have a question, please raise your hand or type it in the box, turn your mic off or on, and ask away. Everybody's more than welcome. There you are, Maddie. Thank you for that. So whilst everybody's just warming up and typing questions in, I'll kick off with a few. Jackie, you said that you were drawn to Mace because of their role on HS2. Can I ask you, what is it that differentiates that project from the other ones? Why is it you enjoy it so much?
Well, so I, as I said in my intro, I've worked in multiple sectors, and I found when I went to Microsoft. It's an incredible company, but I didn't fit. So I didn't feel at home. I wasn't culturally, there was a bit of a mismatch. And during that time, I was thinking, well, what do I want to do? Where do I really feel like I'm connected? And actually, when I not the job I did immediately after leaving, but the next one where I joined Network Rail, I was involved in building Reading Station and the number of the stations that are on the Crossrail. Were part of the Crossrail programme, which obviously has just opened. And I live quite close to Reading, and I look back over my career about the things that I really feel proud of being part of. And actually building Reading Station was one of those things. And whenever I go there, I think this is incredible. And it's because it's tangible. I can see it. I can use it. People are using it all of the time. And I think when I found out that Mace had also won the work to build Euston Station, it really didn't take me very long to say, yes, I'd really like to be part of that. We're working with the community, with, you know, that's part of my role on the project as well. I look after all the people in the project and all the people outside of the project. So the community, our technical partners, and And so hearing what they need from the redevelopment and regeneration in the Camden area that Euston Station for High Speed 2 will deliver, it is incredible. And it's really just about trying to keep that vision in mind as you go through the grind that Maddie talked about earlier, where, you know, the client might say they wanted a red carpet yesterday and a blue one today.
Which happens. Caroline, Jackie made a brilliant observation there. She said that culturally she just didn't fit in a previous role. Can you just give the candidates just some comfort in terms of what process BuildForce goes through just to help with that fit?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I apologise. There's lots of engineering going on in the background, which is quite apt. Yeah, so we were actually, funny enough, just talking to a candidate last night. He's got 2 offers on the table, and wanted to talk to me about, you know, which one should he go for. Clearly, I can't say which one to go for, but we can talk about it. And one of them is one of our employers, one of them isn't. So I can obviously talk about our employer, give a bit more context on that employer. But it's really about, and I think Maddie made reference to it, and Angela always uses it, and I've stolen it as well, Maddie. So we're both doing it. It's what lights your fire, what gets you up in the morning. Is the project going to excite you? What's the career progression? Because if this is it, and you want a career that wants to go further, then maybe this isn't the right project for you. And then the company, is it a good cultural fit? You know, you guys are all in a really lovely cultural fit. You're in a safe place. You want to go to somewhere similar. So it was lovely to hear from Jackie to say that, you know, she's 2 places that she felt she fit. One was the RAF and one was Mace. And I do think Mace is a very safe place to land. It's a good cultural fit, but it may not be for you. Maybe another organisation is a better cultural fit. So we will talk with you and look at the pros and cons. I hope that answered. I've kind of talked around it. Sorry.
No, you did. You answered it perfectly. Okay, a couple of questions that are coming in. One on the military scheme. What is it, Terry? What does it look like on a daily basis?
So we're still doing the latter stage of it, but a lot of work's been done. We understand what the skills gap is. We understand where we need to add value and where we need to help people to adapt more quickly, to be more productive more quickly. So that's a lot of technical knowledge we need to impart in the early stages. And the ambition is between 0 to 3 months of someone joining, they enroll in the program. And that program will be tailored to individuals, because obviously you've got a broad spectrum of people joining the organisation from a broad range of backgrounds, going to different areas of the business. So there isn't a one size fits all. We recognise that completely. So that program will be running throughout the year. Some of it will be online, some will be personally delivered at locations such as 155, which is our headquarters in London. The idea is, like I say, to close that skills gap. We know that some people arrive with in certain areas, so some of it will be online learning, and in agreement with line managers, understanding what the skill set of a particular role is, then we'll roll out the training, make available the training modules that the individual needs to undertake. Our first pilot course towards the end of this year is very much a pilot. We're doing a short course at 155 with some people already employed at Mace, using the information that's been fed back from the likes of Michaela and Maddie on their experience to understand what that course looks like. So that will be a training program for new Mace employees who've come from the military background and within the first 3 months need that technical additions, bolt-ons, if you like, to help them to adapt more quickly. Does that answer your question, Angela?
It does perfectly. Almost sounds like a grad program. They have their day job, but this is additional support just to make sure they're getting the experience and exposure they need, with a few courses thrown in for good measure. I hope that answers the question, Megan. Helen has asked, to be the best fit for Mace, do you need any particular courses on their CV, namely probably around project management? Are you actively looking for Prince 2 or APM? Any of the other ones? Michaela, maybe start with you.
Yeah, look, I mean, any training that you can do in that area, you know, the 2 that you've just mentioned there, Angela, very sort of generic, but a great start point, you know. And when you do see that on somebody's CV, it does several things. It helps you know that they understand the principles of what we're trying to do and what our role is, and 2, that there is an aspiration there to go into project management, which, you know, for us is is half the battle, you know. So I think yes, but you know, that type of course, rather than, I guess, burying you know, or tunneling yourself down one path, you know, that could end up being a bit niche. So, you know, I definitely would encourage people to start with those. And then when we talk about early engagement, sort of following on to Mike's point there, when you're talking to your person at Mace that is, you know, perhaps sort of giving you that kind of soft touch mentoring in you know, before you leave, they can find that information out for you when we're matching you to roles. So often with people, we've been in a situation where we've offered them the role, we know it's 3 months in advance and they still have some learning credits left, and we say, actually, it'd be really great if you use them on this. So I guess my point would be, maybe leave some in your, you know, in the coffers for when you identify what role you want, but definitely like you say, Prince 2 and things like that will definitely stand you in good stead.
And just to follow on to Mike's question, he said, I'm 10 months out. Is it too early to engage? If Mike or any candidate was interested in a PM role, but didn't know if they wanted to go to consult or construct, can they engage with Mace and they can advise where their skills are, where they'd be best suited within that business? Is that part of the service?
Yeah, and one of the things that we're looking at, again, you know, we're evolving. I mean, Caroline has been on this journey with us from the beginning, and she's seen where it was all a bit hit and miss, and we're a lot more streamlined now. And one of the things that Jackie's, you know, definitely been pushing is that we have that early engagement, and we're able to drip feed information. We do campaigns so that we're in touch with people and we can keep them aware of up and coming opportunities, you know. So definitely, I would say 10 months. It's too early for us to say this is a job we'll put you in and here's the offer, but it's definitely not too early to start talking to us. Like, please, you know, reach out and we can help with some of the conversations around your learning credits and timings and location.
I would add,
yeah,
I would add actually to that we also know that if you agree with agreement of your CO, there are ways to leave the military early if you've secured a role. I don't think there's a too early time, but I think, you know, 10 months is, you could start talking to us, but I think, you know, your CO probably isn't going to say yes at 10 months out for sure. But, you know, within the 6-month period, you know, if you were coming from another business, it could be a 3-month notice period for many people coming into a PM role. So, you know, it's somewhere between 3 and 6 months. We definitely could talk to you, and we've got ways in which to try and bring you into the business, and there's an opportunity for us to, when the Mace military program is up and running, for you to sort of get involved with that as well, particularly with the number of jobs that Michaela was highlighting earlier. And while I've got the mic, we have projects across the UK. So there's a couple of questions about the Southwest, a couple of questions about Leeds and Manchester. Absolutely, yes. We're winning work up and down the UK and across the world.
Perfect. Terry, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're just at the moment finalising a digital flyer, which will have lots of, you know, particular specific advice for service leavers, reservists, and veterans, and it's targeted, and it will have information like which courses suit which sort of roles, which sort of things to consider, and give some more information, but in a concise format that we can then use in BuildForce and our other partners. Just share that with the audience of today, and obviously service leavers.
Perfect, thank you. Caroline?
Yeah, I mean, just to add on that engagement, it's never too early to engage. Okay, 10 months is too early to secure that role, but what you do in that 10 months is you start those conversations, you start those placements. You know, there might be a couple of disciplines or areas you want to explore, so that time gives you that time to actually nail down what is it you exactly want to do. So then when you're in your last 6 months, you've already started those conversations, and it's all about timing, and generally those conversations will lead to opportunities.
So you go back to the question that you asked on if someone's not sure whether to go construction or consultant,
Yes.
as well as like Terry mentioned that the PDF that's going to come out for Maze, I'd also recommend just finding a mentor, because like we know what character's suited to it. So if you have, here's my generic CV, you know, it's not appropriately tailored yet, but you get an idea already of the candidate if they're like really detailed focus, or if they don't mind doing, you know, a PEP, which is, you know, kind of sometimes be like an 80-page document on the construction of it, and like you get an immediate understanding of if they're kind of more document orientated or more practical. So little things like that, we're happy to. I know there's other people within the military network that would be happy to talk through it. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Very good answer, Maddie. Helen has asked a great question. What was the most challenging aspect of your transition? And it was a similar question picking up from what Maddie said in terms of your regrets. So can I ask the three veterans that question, actually, your most challenging aspect of transitioning or transitioning into Mace? We'll start with Jackie.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually not transitioned straight out of the military into Mace. So my experience is slightly different, but I would say the most challenging thing is still the use of acronyms and an entirely new language. And I'm a real advocate for plain speaking in wherever I've been. So I would say yes, there's another level of acronyms.
And Maddie?
For me, I guess similar to what Jackie just said, but it's not knowing. I think when you're in the military, you're so in control all the time, like organising things to get done, and being in this industry, I want to help and I want to be an asset and I want to be proactive, but I'm still in the learning phase of understanding construction, so I can't necessarily advise yet because I'm still learning. And that just takes loads of reading, own work, research, as well as being on site, as well as speaking to other people or going onto their construction site, which I've done a couple of times, just to see, you know, how they run a risk shop or a progress shop or an RDD meeting. So yeah, all those sorts of things.
And Terry? You're on mute, Terry.
Absolutely similar. I could be easily on the other side of this camera because I'm 3 months from leaving the service myself, and I absolutely understand the mindset of the people who are on the other end of this call. What I would say is that even though it's early stages, the feeling and the values and the way Mace works is very familiar to me. And one of my almost like my non-negotiables, which Maddie mentioned, is I wanted to join an organisation that had a similar culture to when I left. Really important to me. It's not all about money making. It's all about investing in people, being environmentally friendly, and the big issues that we deal with. It was really important to be part of an organisation that had similar character to when I just left. I've achieved that. I'm completely happy. My problem is the same as Jackie and Maddie are facing, is the technical areas that I'm building up and understanding Mace, and that's improving every day. But it's a process that's developing and ongoing.
Perfect. Michaela?
Just a very quick one for me. It was just to touch on what Maddie was saying about this sort of these early stages of this journey and the learning and self-development, you know. But what I would say is one of the reasons Mace has really pushed hard to get this military hiring program off the ground was, one, because we have great retention in that cohort, and two, because once this period is over for Maddie, the statistics have shown that people really quite quickly progress through the business. So we have a lot of examples of people who've had double promotions in a space of a couple of years, because once that pain barrier is through, all the other skills you have will accelerate you.
That's a really good point. And I think what the military programme does is through the onboarding process, you are able to engage direct with the military guys and girls to say, what can we do better? What can we tweak? What can we address? And that's very much what Terry will lead on. Joanne asked a question which we have picked up in the Southwest, but just a point there on the DNA project. Maddie, obviously that sits within the arts and culture. Are there other opportunities within that sector available?
Yeah, absolutely. I think within the arts and culture sector, if you're interested in joining it, you just make that clear to whoever is interviewing you, and then they'll allocate you the resource. And if it's not, then you may have to go to another sector temporarily. But then when a space comes available, they would rather that they maintain someone from Mace and transition you across, so that there is the scope if it's not immediately available. But yeah, I mean, I think there's just so many theatre projects around in the southwest at the moment. But yeah, VNA, obviously they don't really come around very often, so sadly I can't promise another VNA. But yeah, there are plenty of opportunities available.
Fantastic. Well, I worked on Tate Britain and it was a highlight of my career as well. I love that project. Thomas has asked a question around work experience. Does that sit within the military programme? To Michaela?
Yeah, we have done it before. We have had people in, and it's something that our board director Mark Holmes has asked a couple of times now and said, actually, you know, we should be doing more of this and giving people an opportunity to come and see us and experience our environment. So it's one of the things that this year we're looking to develop a roadmap to, so that we can actually do it in a more kind of strategic way, rather than a call from somebody saying, could you give me 2 weeks experience? We would be able to offer that as part of our employer package for people, you know, considering our sector. So it's definitely it's possible, and it will be even more accessible next year.
Perfect. And a question to Caroline. Sam's asking if we are interested, what is the next step?
So register with BuildForce, or you can give me a call. I'll put my number in there. But then once you're registered, the process will be you're given an hour's induction call, so we can better understand, you know, where your skill sets fit, what you want, and then immediately after that call, you'll be assigned an industry mentor or mentors. And at that point, if you want a work placement, we'll source your work placement. We work with many more employers such as Mace. Mace are fantastic, but we do work with others as well. So there's lots of opportunities.
Okay, and I think probably where Mace has it is the Mace group now. Are there opportunities to jump from consult to construct and to the other parts of the group? Can you have a lifetime career within Mace?
Yeah, look, we've just only recently launched our internal careers campaign. It's called Find Your Next Adventure, and that is definitely where we're at as a business. You know, particularly with our overseas opportunity, we would love to see the people that are based in the UK, that are Mace people, as we would call them, go and work internationally, but also to work, as you say, across different sectors. If somebody's sitting in one role and they're, you know, they're not getting what they need from it, you know, the last thing we want is to lose them to another organisation. So, you know, we have, like I say, a very slick internal careers portal for people to access when they're there.
Perfect. Jackie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know that we've been talking, it's about Mace and you know, what Mace offers to military candidates, but you know, for the people on the call, it's a candidates market, and I think you've heard from all of us that actually it's really important that you find somewhere where you are hearing from people who are like you, have had an experience like you, and you feel like you can fit, because having been in a situation myself that I wasn't comfortable, that you know how you feel yourself, and you will get that feeling through all of the interactions you have with all of the employers that you speak to. I've been very lucky that through LinkedIn and through my network, that most of the jobs that I've had during my career, if you check me out on LinkedIn, you'll see it's quite a few. All of those have been an introduction from someone I know, or from someone who knows me to someone they know. And that is a really good way of starting to build up a feeling for whether or not this company is going to work for you. One of the only places that didn't happen for me, Microsoft, and that's where I felt my least comfortable. So really do take, you know, Maddie's advice about, you know, speaking to people who are in different places and find out for them how they feel about where they are, and because it's really in your hands.
Okay, fantastic. And just to close on a point that Ruben's made, he wasn't even thinking about construction, and he is now. Yes! So there you go. Doesn't get much better than that. And Robert's thanking us for goodie bags and all sorts. So your presence at HS2 was very much appreciated. So we thank you for that as well. Thank you, Roberts. Listen, thank you to Jackie, Terry, Maddie and Michaela for their incredible contribution today. This has been one of our strongest chats. And to our military community, you have heard today from many of your peers and colleagues before you who have chosen this as a rewarding second career. And with this fantastic employer, you are not alone. BuildForce are here to support you during your transition. So please get in touch. Caroline has shared her number, and I will pass over to Caroline to share some insights. But thank you again to our speakers.
So yeah, thank you all. I mean, it really was a fantastic chat. I knew it would be from our tech call yesterday, but especially it was really nice to hear from Maddie in a really different part of the sector, arts and culture. I have to say, lighted my fire as well. I'm really, really envious of what you're working on. So really nice to have that different aspect that we've not heard before in any of our chats. So thank you. And just a final heads up from me is we have got our Armed Forces Day charity walk on Saturday, a 15-mile trek across the Dorset, Hampshire countryside, all off-road, starting at the pub, finishing at the pub with beer and curry. We've got a team of employers, service leavers and veterans. We are a couple of men down, so if you would like to join us and join, we had it last year. It was a wonderful day of different war stories, anecdotes from 3 different generations of veterans. So it is a fab day, and we're doing it, you know, inspired by all of our armed forces that we work with. So drop me a note if you'd like to join us, and enjoy the sunshine and have a good day. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Caroline. Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.